Let's see. So you want to do any strategies in particular that you like?
Well, actually, we play with a real life friend of mine, Night Elf and Undead 2 versus 2, and we have two strategies. One is the obvious hunts and spiders, massive, fiends, and the other one is he feeds me, with everything, and he's just with a hero.
Okay. Let's go ahead and try that. What hero did he usually get?
He gets Warden usually.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get a Warden.
But it works with Demon Hunter, Keeper.
What races were they? I didn't really check.
Actually, I didn't check either.
Well, I'll go for Demon Hunter. That's pretty useful, usually. Okay, so what's up, guys? For those of you that are just tuning in and watching this on YouTube, this is Mage, and I've got Magadansky with me, and this is going to be one of the game night adventures. So I've got Magadansky, who is a longtime participant in the Free-For-All Masters League, longtime free-for-all player, and actually a pretty good solo player before that. So I figured tonight we'll go ahead and get a little bit of background on him, and I've done an interview with him in the past. However, a text interview, you're just really never able to get as much information as you would like. So why don't you go ahead and give me a little information about yourself, Magadansky. Let's start with Free-For-All Masters League. How long have you been, or how long did you play it, I suppose, might be more accurate.
Hi everybody. Well, that's a tough question. I think from 2007 maybe, or 8, or something like this. Yep. Maybe 2008 I've been playing Free-For-All.
Played up through last season, which was season 18. And we'll go ahead and get the question I suspect is on most people's minds out of the way now. Why did you decide to take a break from Free-For-All?
Well, last two seasons, I didn't feel like I enjoyed this as much as I did beforehand, and I was not feeling that competitive, motivated to continue playing. So I decided the best step would be to actually give it a maybe not retire, but a pretty long break.
Take a break, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, because sometimes even now I play occasionally a free-for-all on play free-for-all, and but it's like 1 or 2 games per week or something.
And have you been doing in those games?
Well, the public free-for-all games are pretty different than the FML games. The FML games are known with their seriousness, and that everybody wants to win. Well, that's not really the case in play free-for-all, because there's so many random factors that can contribute to this, how the game will develop.
So has that helped you to maybe, I don't want to say rekindle your passion for free-for-all, but spark a little more interest, just because maybe you don't have to take it quite as seriously, and it's just not quite as much of a time dedication?
Yeah, but I know that especially when I play in the FML, that sometimes the frustration goes back when you lose a game that goes for like 3 hours, for instance. And so of course we must mention the record that me and Renault are still holding.
Yeah, you've got the records for most of the long games, I believe.
Yeah, actually I think for top 2 is also mine, and also Renault. So it's,
yeah, entering you and Renault in the same game is a little bit of a problem usually.
Yeah, I mean, we just cannot get enough of each other. It's...
Yeah, you guys could just talk on Skype. You don't actually have to spend the entire time in free-for-all playing.
Yeah, but, that's...
That's what you do?
That's what we do.
They picked up Blade Master Grunt's rifle of Mountain King, if you didn't notice, by the way.
Alright, whatever they have.
I was gonna say, Fiends can take it.
Yeah. By the way, you can also set an expansion here if you want.
I will, yep.
Give you some...
I just noticed that you're creeping that.
Yeah.
I'm good on gold, thank you. Okay, so when you're actually well known for being the first person to reach 3 titles in the Free For All Masters League, and when was your most recent title? Was it season 16 or 15? I can't really remember off the top of my head.
I think it was 15.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 15, but maybe I'm wrong.
Apparently they don't mean that much to you if you can't remember them. Go ahead and revoke them now.
Yeah, well, it's the thing is that I don't remember the number of the season. I just remember, for instance, the games or the last game I had that I won was that final with Rectify with Human Star and Sexy, where I got killed by Sexy in the beginning, and but I managed to stay alive, literally, just holding on more or less bare minimum of on systems.
Yeah, that was actually, you got hit by Sexy early on and almost taken out, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean,
then you had that
my base
was
was dead. I had no gold, and eventually I got enough gold just to build one army, and that army actually won the game.
Yep, we actually did, or I think I did a solo cast on that, and it was a pretty remarkable game. They're coming in behind you, by the way. And it looked early on like both Rectify, who we didn't actually know was Rectify at the time. He was playing under DFM, and nobody had known that it was actually Rectify. And Sexy were having very good games. It looked like it was DFM's to lose. He and Sexy were kind of duking it out at the time, and then we could see, as an observer obviously, that you had this huge hidden army that just nobody had scouted out. And it's certainly not a tactic that you pulled for the first time, actually. You're pretty well known for using your cunning like that. But they were just too focused. I mean, it was a final game. Everybody had all their attention on trying to pull off the win that they got there. And you were able to come in at the end and just pull off a really nice win. And I think if they were having some bets on it at the time, it probably would have been like a... maybe 1 in 100 chance of you winning that, but you did manage to pull it off.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that I even suspect that they knew that I had some hidden army, but were thinking that it's either not so big, or that my heroes, since they were inferior, it wouldn't matter at the end.
Yeah, I mean, as Undead, you're usually thinking that you really need those high-level heroes at the end to win it, but it just goes to show if you do manage to pull off that perfect timing, then even with some low-level heroes you'll be able to do it. But truly an incredible game. So that was kind of the last of the, what I'll call, in-shape Magadansky we saw. But before that, I mean, you're pretty much known as the most dominant player in the Free-for-All Masters League. So let's go back to the beginning, I guess, and tell me about how you got started in Free-for-All Masters League. I think it was briefly outlined in our interview, but I'm not sure everybody's read it. Those that don't, it's on freeforallmastersleague.net. But go ahead and give me a little overview of how you got started.
Sure. I was playing Free-for-All on Battle.net for like for fun, more or less. I didn't even know at that time that there is a league, and I managed to reach, I believe, rank 2, purely on solo matters. Like I didn't have any idea about manipulation, about how to deal in a 3-way. My game style was just kill whatever is...
maybe a little elementary at the time.
Yeah, let's say it that way. And eventually I was contacted by FSTCSH, or Farseer Torrent Chieftain's Shallow Hunter.
That's a name
He
I've
was
heard in a
a
while.
Austrian. He was an Austrian player. Played Orc, as the name suggests actually. And he contacted me on Battle.net, asking if I'm interested to substitute for him in the league. And I was like, well, that sounds actually interesting. Why not? And that way, I ended up substituting in a game on Gold Rush, where it was Boba's Vet, I believe, Pencil Warrior, and somebody else that I don't remember.
Yeah, a lot of our newer viewers probably not familiar with those names, but Pencil Warrior actually was considered the top undead player for a long time in free-for-all, and had some really ridiculous records on the Battle.net ladder when that mattered a little bit more.
Yeah, he was actually pretty good.
Played Master Careful.
Yeah, heard it. And yeah, I won actually that game, which sparked my interest to actually apply in the next season. And that was season 7,
Okay.
which I applied. And
So that was actually, I wouldn't say a long time, but I mean, Free-for-all Masters League had been around for a decent amount of time, at least at that point then.
yeah, I mean, that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's
So-
hard to remember that's been around that long.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when I go that far, you know, it's crazy just to think that, wow,
Hmm.
I've been playing for that long, and
Yeah,
actually that's also probably one of the reasons why I lost motivation. I mean, when you play so long, and you need sometimes to just have a break and
Yeah, I completely understand.
maybe the fire may relight at some point. But
Well, we'll definitely see. So once you got your start in season 7, you said, right?
Yeah.
So did you play the full of season 7, or was that season 8 when you actually started playing full time?
Season 7
Okay.
is when I started.
And
full
how
time.
did you do in season 7?
I actually won it even.
Did
That
you
was
really?
my- yeah.
First season in, you won. I mean, how hard could it be, I guess?
Yeah, well, it was. I quickly learned actually the most important things in free for all, like gold management and a way to manage your armies, which really helped me. And also, of course, at that point, I was not so famous, so
Yeah.
that also helped.
So was that a time when you
Because-
actually were kind of able to fly under the radar? Because that seems kind of just like a foreign concept to me.
Yeah, well, actually, that game, or the final, it was me, Toming Rectify, and then the other 2 players were Nublex and Lin, and they were fighting each other, and they actually were not paying attention to me that much. I mean, we were fighting also, but they were highly concentrated on their own fight, which eventually helped me win the game.
Okay, so you managed to pull off a win in season 7 of your first season in. Some might think that'd be a little bit of an accomplishment, but apparently that wasn't quite enough for you. So how did season 8 go for you now that you had a little more notoriety? People maybe took you a little more seriously and realized what a huge threat you were.
Season 8. I think season 8. I cannot think of season 8. Who won season 8? Let me check and I'll remember the final.
Okay.
I think Rectify won it.
Honestly, I probably should know as an admin, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah, I went to, since we won that game, I just went to check. Yeah, season 8 was won by Rectify, but I can't remember how did it go for me. maybe I wasn't in the final, I guess. if I don't remember.
Well, hopefully that's the case. Okay, so
But I've seen season 10, and season 10 was one of the greatest FML finals in my opinion. It was with HTRT and Human Star again.
Yep, you want to come accept this invitation so we can get the search going?
Yeah, and Dasslant also.
Yeah, that might actually be my just favorite free-for-all game.
It was really amazing free-for-all game in general, not just because it was a final. It was really so much emotions, turnarounds, unexpected turnarounds. And, I mean, until the very end, you do not know who will win.
Nah, Mog and I did a cast on that not too long ago, and even knowing the outcome, knowing how the game went, I was just incredibly flabbergasted at how good it was. But maybe some of the people haven't seen it, and you'll be able to give them a little bit of a sell on it. Why don't you give a little bit of recap of the final in your words?
Yeah, well, it was, I already mentioned the players. Maybe some of you do not know, Dasslant was a very, very good orc, one of the best orcs actually.
Absolutely, he was one of the micro beasts of the time. We don't have that many orcs in our league anymore, but he was on par, if not better than Calypso in terms of micro, and just a dominant force. He made a brief resurgence later, but he played Night Elf and he kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, he was one of the orcs that was really feared in that moment. And Human Star, of course, I suppose everybody knows him. He's still kind of active, I guess. Maybe semi-active.
In a while, but it wasn't that long ago, at least, that he was playing.
Yeah, he's one of the solid human players all around. I mean, he's not like somebody who you would expect to, how to say, to be the most feared player on the field, but he's certainly a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, he made the finals very frequently, in like maybe a span of 6 seasons. He was in the finals 4 times. Never actually pulled out the win, but just a very impressive streak of very high quality standings. And just played human at a good level. Never great in any regard, I wouldn't say, but also didn't really have any weakness with it either. Yeah,
just an all-around very solid player. And HTRT is, I would say, quite unique player.
He's one of my favorite players, actually.
He really had different strategies, like certain builds that he made according to players he's facing or the map he's playing on. Very usually aggressive style, but he can also be passive, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I would say he has a mind for free-for-all. He's actually a pretty well-known and very good
creative.
Solo player that went by Piz as well, and is also known as John Irenicus. I believe. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Irenicus? I don't know. But he's still a little active, although he's turned into a little bit more of a troll these days than anything else. But, I mean, he really did have a mind for free-for-all with his creativity.
Yeah. Well, that game unfolded with HTRT killing Dasslant, and then becoming me and Human Star fighting, and then becoming a very interesting 3-way, not a boring manipulation style of 3-way, but actually everybody was fighting everybody, and eventually it became it had a very close end, since all players lost their main bases, all players did not have any gold, or very little gold. And since I do not like to spoil it, I'll just say that watch it after that to see how it goes.
Yeah, it's available on our YouTube channel. It really is pretty incredible. And it stands as one of the best seasons that Free For All has had. and unfortunately kind of the end of an era. I mean, that was the end of Daseland, and that was the end of HTRT playing, really. Both have come back in brief intervals after that, but they really were never the same players they were at that time with how dominant they were. But like all good things, we moved on. So how about any highlights from the next couple of seasons that you vividly remember?
Actually, when you said that was the end of the golden age, I would say that's exactly also how I feel now that I look it into, retrospective. Because after that, it became way too... the games became filled up with manipulation.
Seasons 11 to 13 in particular. There were a lot of really long games that were very chat heavy at the time.
Yeah, even the next final, which featured Star-shaped L77 and
Daseland never knew.
Yeah, I mean that was, if not the worst final ever.
I think it probably qualifies as the worst final ever. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and it was on Gold Rush, and I do not know who chose that map. That was a very bad decision, and yeah. And
it didn't quite work out the way it should have.
even after that, I mean, I won 2 more titles after season 13 and 15, maybe. I don't exactly know which seasons.
I think that sounds right. I'm not positive, but I think it does.
But the games are... I mean, I didn't get the same satisfaction as with that game as I just mentioned, with HTRT and Human Star, even though, well, I'll spoil something, I didn't win. But I still felt that this was an incredible game. Well, now, when I win a game with manipulation, that is filled with manipulation, with raging, with flaming, and threats to suicide, and all these typical free-for-all, terms. It's not the same fun anymore.
Nope, I can understand that, and I think it actually is getting better. I think, as much as a lot of people like to flame the solo community for not getting free-for-all, I think they're bringing in a lot of really... They don't manipulate very much, they're bringing in more action, and they can turn into very, very good players. So, I mean, you obviously don't want to affect the metagame on purpose. However, I think that it's entirely possible there's going to be another shift in free-for-all, and we're going to kind of go back to the less manipulation-heavy style soon. Which, I mean, on a personal level, I'm not sad to see.
Although that may be true, I also noticed that a lot of the solo players, when they play against free-for-all veterans that know that they cannot take them 1 versus 1 and have to rely on manipulation, they realize that actually, it's better to be passive rather than active, because when I am active, people team me.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate conclusion that can be drawn for a lot of the players, but there are also a lot of players, I think, I mean, Yaws is a prime example of this right now, who are just kind of taking that and rolling with it and saying, well, I'm going to go ahead and beat you guys 2v1.
Yeah, actually, Yaws is one of the players that is, he has that quality, but other players, like Star-Shaped, for instance, like in this final that we mentioned, or One, or Calypso, they've become really passive players, even though they come from a solo background. They are fine to just sit and do nothing for... I mean, I realized that the metagame has shifted quite... I mean, after the golden age, as we defined it, the metagame has shifted, unfortunately, to some manipulation-heavy games, and I'm hoping that maybe we'll see some more action games with less less manipulation, less threats, less raging, uh, less waiting hours. You know.
I think it's on the way back. If you look at the average game time of the seasons now, they are shorter. I mean, map selection helps a lot. Like you said, we're not really including Gold Rush anymore.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, there's a combination. There's only so much you can do, obviously. But if you kind of steer it towards maps that are going to prove to be less friendly towards really, really manipulative, hoarding-heavy players, that'll help. And then, I mean, as players learn that the just sitting back and hoarding isn't going to work anymore, they'll have to change their game style. And it may take a while. It may never go back to exactly what it was, which, that's fair. I mean, we're probably never going to go exactly to where it was. We are probably idealizing the game type then. I'm sure it wasn't as great as we're making it sound, but I have high hopes for free-for-all going forward, and I really do think that we are having a changing meta game right now, and 2 seasons down the line, we will see a lot less hoarding games. We'll see a lot of our current solo players who maybe don't have a full grasp on what they're doing turn into very good free-for-all players, and it's entirely possible we may have more players come back. I know Nublex is actually playing on the Play Free-for-all ladder again, and I'm sure there will be more retirements. I mean, we lost both you and Rectify in one season, which that's combined 6 FML titles gone right there. So,
well, I guess he also wanted some break or something.
Yep, no, I talked to him, and that's exactly what it was. He actually was talking about if he had won the final, permanently retiring, but he says he'll be back now. However, he just needs some time off, and, I mean, you're right, playing free-for-all is possibly even more grindy and tiring than it is in other game types, and the losses hit you a lot harder, I think. I mean,
well, they're still, you know, I mean, even when I think how certain games have gone, you know, when I think about the game the next day after I've played it, you know, and I still get that feeling, for instance, that, oh my god, how the hell did I lose that shit? You know, 3 hours there fighting against these 2 guys that have hoarded so much gold. For instance, I'm just giving a hypothetical situation, but that has happened before, and it's really, it can really make you feel irritated a lot.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why there's so much emotion tied into it, and possibly why some of these game styles have evolved. It's people simply don't want to lose; they're afraid to lose, because, I mean, if you have a 2.5, 3 hour game, that's literally an eighth of a day that you've just lost. Whereas even in solo, I mean, you get a long game, 30 minutes. That's not very often. It may be heartbreaking to lose it, however, it's probably not going to be the end of the world for you, and you're going to be able to bounce back and play a game immediately after. After some of these free-for-alls, you lose that. You don't want to touch free-for-all for a couple days.
Yeah, or it's... But, you know, as I mentioned, sometimes the game itself, even if you win it, it still irritates you. Like, such a, for instance, a long game with a lot of manipulation, with a lot of raging, with a lot of emotions involved. I mean, it's not like, okay, in the last seasons, of course, I was manipulating also quite a lot. But I accustomed to the meta game because I realized that if I start playing aggressively, they just team me. And that was happening constantly all the time. And I realized that for me the best chance would be if I start to manipulate in order to avoid getting teamed.
Yeah, so a lot of people actually would say you're probably one of the bigger manipulators out there. How would you answer that? I mean, why don't you give us a little rundown, because you obviously were known for a long time and still are known as one of the best microing undeads out there. However, you certainly did have a heavy influx of manipulation in your style. So how did that come about, and what made you feel like you had to make that part of your game?
I had to make that part of my game because and when I won my first title, and eventually I became more known in the free-for-all community. People were getting scared when, for instance, I attack somebody, and he immediately starts crying for help, even if we didn't even have a single fight yet to come. And usually that resulted in somebody answering, "Oh yeah, we should team him immediately," and it was happening quite often. So I realized that, well, it's not going to work if I'm just being aggressive on my own, just to continue my old style. I have to mix up something, because otherwise I won't be able to win. People just team me, and I cannot fight 2 versus 1 anymore, because, to be honest, my micro has decreased a bit, because I'm not playing solo anymore. So yeah, the obvious choice was to include the manipulation as part of the game.
So from an analytical perspective, what makes manipulation successful? I mean, what made you so much better at it than everybody else was? Because everybody knew that you were a great player, everybody knew that you were going to manipulate. It felt like people really fell for yours a lot more than other people. So obviously I don't want to give away your hints and encourage people to continue to heavily manipulate, but what was it that you felt made you so believable, I guess?
To me, I was usually saying the truth of something, something real that is happening. But for instance, somebody has 3 expansions. In the meantime, I may have also 3 expansions, but I'm not mentioning that, you know. So I'm trying to get the attention on somebody else, and make the other players, or my main enemies, that I consider my main enemies in the game, to be teamed, or
We can take out the human, by the way.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, let's go. Or
trust me, he's not very good. Okay, so I mean, it's basically that idea of including an element of truth in everything.
Yeah, actually, the blatant lies, which, especially when they're easy to scout, do not work, because that way you just when you're getting
TP
caught.
back here. I'm giving you a TP.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll
Okay.
just tell. When you're getting caught by saying something completely ridiculous, usually you destroy any credibility eventually when you start saying something true. For instance, I have no gold. You may have no gold, but if you have lied before, nobody will believe you. So it's pretty important when to use it and when to actually just shut up and play. Because unfortunately today I know a lot of players that just manipulate even if they're obviously winning, and that annoys me. Or if they're obviously the strongest. To me, if you're obviously the strongest, just shut up and play.
That might be some of the solo player you're talking there.
Well, it's true, but maybe. But usually when I realize that I'm the strongest and that I'm being teamed I'm being rightfully teamed, I just concentrate on on my micro, on my macro, on my gold management. Because if I start chatting, usually I lose concentration, and yeah, that results in micro mistakes or something else that could have been avoided.
So you actually touched on something I think is very interesting. You mentioned being rightfully teamed. Even when you should be teamed, it's very frustrating to have that happen, and that's what a lot of people don't like about free-for-all. How did you deal with being teamed? I mean, how do you properly make sure that you don't get over-teamed, and how do you also just fight 2v1 so often?
Well, it's really hard to determine. However, I would say when you know that you're obviously the richest, that your heroes are obviously the highest level, and that both of your enemies, for instance, are broke or with little gold, then you must realize that you're being rightfully teamed, and you should just concentrate on killing them, and not try to manipulate. That's another thing that I do not like nowadays, is how many players, even if they're so much ahead, they continue to chat and they continue to say, "Oh, I'll suicide you if you the first who attacks me will get suicided," or whatever, you know, typical manipulations. To me, I mean, if you realize that you're the strongest, just play. When that's not the case anymore, then maybe you can say like, okay, you know.
So actually, I mean, we're running a little long as is, but you talked about something interesting. I mean, you've mentioned your solo background before, and I think this is something not a lot of people know about you. So could you tell us, I mean, obviously you started in the solo community, but you're actually pretty good playing for a Bulgarian team, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was a Bulgarian team. I mean, at first it was international, then it was turned into Bulgarian, and then Bulgarian in some internationals.
Okay, and this was 3WD, right?
Yeah, and actually we were playing in different tournaments, both in Bulgaria, also ESL. No, actually in ESL we couldn't qualify, I believe. But in Bulgaria there were many tournaments at that time. Both solo and for teams, and we were doing pretty okay. Actually, I managed to even earn some money from all that.
Not bad.
Yeah, which considering I was like 16 at that time or something.
You're living the dream at that age.
Well, I mean, there was one computer cafe, internet cafe in Bulgaria, which had like 500 computers in it at that time. It was the biggest cafe, I think, in the Balkans. And our team could go there and play for free whenever we want. We had our own computers situated there, and we could go there, play as much as we want, whatever we want. It was actually fantastic, and indeed it was like living the dream, you know. When we had to travel to some other city for a tournament, it was also, everything was arranged and paid, so it was really nice.
So obviously you are no longer traveling around playing video games for a living. I assume that you have not taken up a professional StarCraft 2 career in our absence. I guess what went wrong or what changed that took you away from the solo scene?
It was actually something similar than like now. I just lost motivation. Also, the kind of the scene in Bulgaria faded away.
Okay.
So yeah, at that time I was looking for different game types that were interesting for me. So I actually started playing free-for-all that way, because I was feeling like, yeah, this relaxes me, you know. It felt like, yeah, trying to kill 4 players one after the other, that's fun. And usually I was getting teams and killed oftentimes. But sometimes my micro was enough to win the game.
So when was this that you were switching over, I guess? When did you stop playing solo?
Yeah, I think there was one period in which 3WD got disbanded eventually, and the solo scene and the whole Warcraft scene in general in Bulgaria started to fade away, in which I was thinking, like, should I stop playing Warcraft? No, I think I should play some more. And then I was like playing some AT with some friends and playing free-for-all. I was playing solo too, but I realized it's no longer fun. So I was thinking, like, okay, playing Night Elf in general for me became really boring, because I have like thousands of games with Night Elf, you know, thousands of games.
That might be something people actually don't realize about you, is that you originally were a Night Elf player.
Yeah, and I was sick and tired of playing Night Elf, really sick and tired. So I was like, what race would be fun to play? And I was thinking maybe human, maybe orc. No. So I decided it's going to be...
Just ditch it. I'll rebuild out your expansion.
Yeah. Should we port over there? No.
No, just ditch it.
Okay. And... yeah, I decided to play with Undead, although at that time, I had no... probably just a very handful of games with Undead. So... I actually learned Undead by playing free-for-all.
That's probably not the way most people learn to play it. If I just had to hazard a guess.
Yeah, I learned to play free-for-all by playing... Undead. And it was... we should TP out, I think.
Yep.
Okay, why is it not working?
In theory, you should TP out.
Yeah.
Your building is
Now it worked. So, yeah. It was... You know, I started to realize how fun Undead is with in free-for-all, because I loved using destroyers and frostworms at that time. And all in all, the air armies that the Undead has. So this actually was the turning point, and when I finally decided, yeah, I'm going to play Undead. When I play free-for-all. It was pretty cool.
And I guess you never looked back from there. So do you actually... When's the last time you played any solo?
That must be probably a year ago at least. And
did you play Undead or Night Elf at the time?
I play Night Elf because it's like cycling, you know. You don't forget. You just have your strategy and just play it. I think actually one of the last solos I've played was against Lightweight when we had this conflict, let's say. And we were like, okay, let's do it solo style. And yeah, we played 2 solos. I won. No, yeah, was it 2? Yeah, 2 solos. I won 2-0. So it was like...
There you go, reigning champion, Magadansky, the best solo player out there remaining. You heard it here first. So I think I've covered most of the topics that I had on my list. Is there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I'm following the new seasons. So far it seems interesting. It's
Yeah, we've had a bunch of surprising results so far, I think, to say the least.
yeah, I actually didn't expect these players that are currently on the top to be there. Noix and SK2 Flash.
Flash is having a fantastic season, which it may not make you feel any better to know, but the only time that he started doing better was after he switched from Undead to Orc.
Well, that's not a surprising thing. I mean, Orc is arguably the best race in free-for-all.
I don't think that.
They don't win as much just because they get teams, not because they're inferior to any other. Yeah, I mean, usually the things with Orcs. I mean, I don't want to curse him now, but the thing with Orcs is that they reach the final and then they get teamed immediately.
Yeah, that was the problem Dassaland ran into all the time.
Dassaland, also Calypso in the last final, he got rushed by Tyrant. Pretty nicely rushed, actually.
Yeah, that was a pretty surprising play at the time, for sure. Who knew that Tyrant had it in him?
Well, I mean, it was very well executed, except the fact that he didn't put an expansion when he could. But apart from that, he actually did a pretty good job. And that's the thing with Orcs, is that they're really strong, the strongest race. But they just cannot win the thing, because when it goes to the final, people realize, oh, wait a second, actually Orcs are the strongest, so we should get them killed. And then that's why humans win the most, because the human race is second best in free-for-all, mainly because of the tanks, of course, and mass TP. So yeah, that's my theory about FML finals and why so many human champions there are. And,
we'll have to agree to disagree on that point, but I think I have taken up enough of your time. It is actually, let's see, what time is it for you right now? It's 2 a.m. It might be okay if I let you go ahead and get to bed. But thank you so much for joining me, Magadansky. For those of you who missed the earlier introduction, obviously this is Magadansky, 3-time FML champion, taking a break currently, but we know he's always with us, and I hope you'll join me again in the future at some point to cast some more free-for-alls.
Yeah, of course, maybe for some semifinal or something. Why not?
That sounds like a really good plan to me. Alright, Maga. We will talk soon, and I'll catch you later.
Yeah, see you. Good night.